This just happened yesterday, so it's fresh in my mind. I'm not sure what to think of it because it was just so bizarre and unbelievable. I might have just been sleep deprived, maybe. So last night at maybe 11 p.m., I was walking around my block. My town is relatively safe, so I didn't feel in danger. Plus, it was a very pretty night. I had been walking for around 5 minutes when a pale woman with blonde hair and a white dress caught my eye. From across the street. She was about my height and looked to be about my age too. I didn't actually pay attention to her after I first noticed her. While I circled the block again, she was on the same street a couple of feet in front of me. She was standing on the curb staring at the cars passing by. It was a main road, so even that late, people were still driving on it. I said hello to her, and she turned her gaze towards me. I couldn't see her face super well, but from what I think, I saw that she had no pupils or color in her eyes. She just stared at me. After a while, I asked if she was okay. She didn't respond again and simply pointed at the road. I was really confused and didn't understand. Right as a red car started coming down the road, she stepped into the road. The car slammed into her, and it was a bloody mess. The driver immediately stopped and jumped out. It was a man in his mid-20s. We both spoke about it, freaking out. He called the police, and I went around the car to see if the state of the girl. Once I circled around the car, she was gone. Not gone as in dead, gone as in she wasn't there. The blood on the road was gone too, but not gone from his car. After the police arrived, they concluded that it was some big hoax of some kid who didn't know what they were talking about and some guy who just went along with it. The blood on the truck was brought to investigation only to be found as paint. Nothing else was put up about it. I'm not sure if what happened was real. It felt so real, but I don't believe in the paranormal. I don't know what it was really. If it was a dream or if it was real. I remember it like it was real. I feel like I can't leave the house now. I don't understand anything now, and I kind of feel like I'm going crazy. Has anyone else experienced anything like this? I was 13 years old when this happened to me, and I live in Denmark, and my grandma lives in Lithuania. So every summer, me and my mom take a trip over to her and live in an apartment. My mom and I live in another apartment than my grandma does. So I was playing with my two friends from Lithuania. They were 9 and 5 years old. They couldn't speak so much English, and I couldn't either. But we were playing with a ball at about 10 p.m. Then an old woman started walking over to a bench and started staring at us. I didn't think much of it, so I didn't tell my friends. Then she stood up and started coming towards us. My friends started looking at her. They ran up to the door to their apartment section and held it for me. They started screaming that I should come over to help them. I didn't know what to do, so I ran in a circle to see if the old woman was following me. Then I ran over to my friends. She started smiling and staring into my eyes. I started running over to my friends, looking behind to see if she was following me. And she was still following me with that creepy smile. We locked the door and ran up the stairs and looked out the window to see if the woman was still there. But she had disappeared. We waited at the stairs because she may be waiting behind the door because you can't see from the window. While we were waiting, They told me that the woman had killed a kid in the neighborhood. I didn't know if that was true, but it was about time for me to go home. So I opened the door and looked out to see if anybody was there, but there was no one. So I started to run up to my apartment section and tried unlocking the door, but it didn't work. I started hearing someone coming towards me. I tried again, and this time it worked. I was probably panicking. I started to run up to my apartment door and unlock it with my key, and I got in and locked the door. My mom was sleeping, and I didn't want to wake her up to tell her what happened, because she was really tired. So I made myself something to eat out of the fridge. While eating, I stuck my head outside the window, as it was nighttime, and I liked looking at the stars. I stayed there and ate for around 5 minutes, then looked down because I was done eating. But when I looked down, I saw a woman under the tree. She stared at me with these eyes, like she wanted to kill me. I froze. I didn't know what to do. I was only 13. So I took a kitchen knife and kept it with me the rest of the night. And I checked again if the door was locked as well. So I went to bed. I opened the door to my bedroom slowly so I could look around to see if anyone was trying to get in. The time went by so slowly, and I couldn't fall asleep. Then it came. I heard 3 knocks at the door. I slowly started walking over to the door. While I was out of my room, the floor started creaking. I walked over to the door very slowly. I had the kitchen knife in my hand if I needed it, and I looked out the peephole. I didn't see anything. And then out of nowhere, an eye popped out, and I could see it staring into my eye. I said if she would be here in 1 minute, I would call the cops. I just screamed out. I didn't know what else to do. And I didn't know if she would understand what I was saying, because most of the people that live around here can't speak English that well. So I walked into my mom's bedroom, looking to see if she had woken up after I started screaming at the woman, but she was still sleeping. I walked over to my bedroom and got into my bed. I stayed in my bed for almost 2 hours, afraid to sleep. I was scared of that woman, if she would come back, if she would try to break in while I was still asleep. My mom seemed very tired. I looked at my phone to see what time it was. It was 3 a.m. I was about to fall asleep when the door handle started jiggling, but it just went up and down as the woman behind the door, I believe, was trying to open it. I just stayed there. It kept going up and down for about 10 minutes. I froze in fear, and then it stopped. I must have fallen asleep, because the next thing I can remember was my mom waking me up. She had made some breakfast for me. While we were eating, I told her about what had happened, but she didn't believe me one bit, and just said that I might have had a nightmare. Nothing ever happened again with that woman, but it still freaks me out about what happened that night. Okay, so this happened a few days ago, when I was on a road trip with my cousin. I'll be referring to him again as James, like I have in past stories. For a quick reference, I'm 13 and I'm female. James is 21. James and I were on a road trip from my grandmother's to my aunt's house. I have a great relationship with him, so my parents let me go on trips with him occasionally. It's about a 10-hour drive, and we're about 3 hours into the drive. It was about 9 p.m. at the time. I was pretty sleep deprived, and everything was hilarious at that moment. So when I saw this red semi-truck outside my window, I just laughed it off. The man inside the truck was heavy-set and had a long, untamed beard. He had a creepy vibe, but I waved to them. He turned back and waved, but did a groping motion towards me. Finding it more hilarious than creepy, I started laughing harder and told James the story, doing the whole groping motion thing and all. He looked creeped out and disgusted, but there wasn't anything either of us could do. A while later, about 4.5 hours into our drive, James pulled into a rest stop. I walked into the bathroom, and when I came out, the man was just standing there. He looked to be about 6 foot. I looked at the glass door leading into the building and saw James glaring daggers at the door. I was confused and walked back to the car. What he told me really creeped me out, so much that I started crying. Then again, I had been awake for 20 hours straight. The man had stared and followed me inside to the building, mumbling things about me. James said he was basically talking normally. He attempted to comfort me, but quickly said he had to go to the bathroom and went inside. A few seconds later, when I was in the car, the guy was at my window. He stared at me, a wide, creepy grin. He started saying I should go with him and he was going to treat me good. He offered me candy and just tried to coax me into his truck. I was bawling my eyes out. Then, right on cue, James walks out and yells at the guy, threatening him. The guy backed off and got into his truck. He just stared at me, the grin still on his face. We floored it out of there and wanted to get far away from that guy. It was around 12 a.m. when we pulled into a motel to sleep. The rest of the night until 8 a.m. was fine. Nothing really happened. Sadly, that didn't last too long. When we were at the restaurant eating breakfast, the same guy sat across from us. How could it be him? He grinned at me, and James just looked really upset. The guy walked by the table when going to the bathroom and brushed his hand on my shoulder, doing the same on the way back. A quick note, James is a chill dude and would let most anything slide, but because he's known me since I was a baby, he's protective. He was obviously mad from before, and at that point he stood up from his seat and walked over to the guy's table. He started yelling at him and about how he better stop following us and back off. He made no threats, but did curse a lot. I felt pretty nervous, and I just wanted to go. The guy stood up and smacked James, and yelled at how I was leading him on. The guy was about 6 foot, and James was 6'8". Their argument continued until the cops came and separated it. They got the story and came to the conclusion because he was assaulted, we could press charges. He said no, and we just continued the day. The rest of the trip was pretty bland. The guy wasn't seen for the rest of it. However, James did follow me around like a bodyguard whenever we went anywhere. Even though he was protecting me, I was terrified. He looked scary, but I know he wouldn't hurt a fly.